Hey everybody, it's James Vagley here, and welcome to another episode of the MBA podcast. It's episode 195. We're creeping ever so quickly up to episode 200. How are you feeling today, Ash?
Heading to the double century. I'm starting to get very excited. I can't believe it. No, I'm
Hmm.
good, really good. And I am intrigued personally. I reckon our listeners might be intrigued by the title and subject matter of this week's episode.
Indeed. Well, listeners, this week we're talking about why you should wear white when everyone wears black. And it's pretty funny because, well, most of the time we record these. If you're watching on YouTube, there's videos of these, and most of the time we're wearing black or close to it. So it's kind of a little bit funny that we're talking about, well, you should actually wear white when everybody's wearing black, when we pretty much wear black most of the time. But um, so yeah, that's what we're talking about today, team. And what does this even mean? Well, essentially what we want to talk about in this episode is what's the strategy of being different. It's the strategy of actually strategically standing out. Now, this could be in a number of different ways that we're going to talk about in this episode, but actually standing out. Now, in Australia, I think a lot of our listeners are from, and it's where our members are predominantly from, Australia, New Zealand. So wherever you are in the world, it might be a little bit different. But in Australia, a lot of the time, people do not want to stand out. Australians love to blend in. Ash and I live in and around Melbourne, which is notorious for people that just wear black most of the time. And look, to be fair, we also do own black. Um, and what this episode is all about is actually wearing black and being like everybody else in business is actually a really bad idea. It's boring. You become a dime a dozen. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about physically, what you wear, but it's a good thing to stand out in business and not be like everybody else. So, where do you want to kick this one off, Ash, from your perspective?
Yeah, I feel like going and getting into my white t-shirt for starters. So I'll wear white to the next episode. Stay tuned, listeners. Look, I think this runs pretty deep, this one, actually. I know for a lot of people, it's a huge challenge in embracing their own uniqueness. I think as human beings, to touch on a sort of human behavior, we are social creatures. We do like to blend in. We do like to be part of a tribe. We do like to feel part of the crowd. That's embedded in our DNA. So that's normal. Nothing wrong with it. That's part of being human. However, the problem with that is we're now saying do the opposite of that to stand out, which is easy to say, but harder to do. And I think a lot of it comes back to a little bit of understanding what is unique about you and finding your voice, right? And that then gets represented in what you talk about, the authenticity and sincerity that you bring to the process. It can be what you wear. It can be the brand of your business. It can be the level of going there with the stuff that you talk about rather than saying what you think people want to hear. It really starts to represent itself a lot. And I think the reason a lot of people don't do it based out of fear is because they don't really know themselves or they haven't embraced what's unique and authentic about them. Because, it's one of those truisms in life, James, isn't it? We speak about it in how you deal with prospects and in various other ways. But embracing yourself and your own unique identity is the one thing that you've got that no one else can compete with. It's the one thing that each of us have that no one can compete with.
It's true. It's true. I have something on that. I think a lot of people probably do know who they are, but I think the issue is more that they are afraid to take that into their business. Here's me at home, here's me with my friends and family. When I walk in, I put my business cap on, and that's why we see people dressing the way they think they should dress in a polo, a branded polo, or it's a shirt and pants. They say the way they type emails, everything starts to stink of business and corporate and not them and who they are. And I do agree with you, Ash. I'm just thinking that it's more that they are afraid to bring that into their business. Why do you think that people are afraid to bring who they are into their business and instead build up their business just like everyone else? You wear a suit, you type like a corporate, your branding looks like a corporate, you wear boring colors.
I like your perspective. No, I really appreciate that. And I take that on board. Really good question. Look, there's a lot of reasons, I think. A lot of them come back to what I said earlier about, I think we're conditioned from evolution, but we're also conditioned through our upbringing, our socialization to fit in, right through the schoolroom as children. Sport, life is fit in. Don't stand out. Don't put your hand up. Don't make a noise. Don't be disruptive. So we hear don't stand out a lot. I mean, think about it, listeners. How many times in your life as children did you get told, don't stand out, don't make a noise, only speak when you're spoken to? All of that sort of stuff, which comes from a good place. But guess what it trains into us is, well, I know I should stand out and be myself, but every cell in my body is pulling the other direction because
Mm,
that's what I've been conditioned to believe. So we hold this belief that we need to fit in. Whereas the truth is, the more you stand out, the better. So I think a lot of it comes back to that, James, which is why it's hard to change because we're asking people to change 20, 30, 40, 50 years of conditioning to fit
mm.
in. And now we're saying, don't fit in.
Well, yeah, you're right. Like listeners, I'm sure you relate to that. That yeah, standing out when you're younger is almost a bad thing, something to not be done. It's fall into line, be like everybody else. But in business, it's the worst thing you could do. Like the people that have something different to say, are different, look different, use a different strategy, put themselves out there, they're the ones that are getting noticed. And I guess that's what it's all about, Ash. Like if we talk about wearing white when everyone wears black, we talked about this last week with public speaking too. Like all things being equal, the person that's a speaker or seen as more of an expert or a celebrity, I'll choose them. And the exact same thing. If I'm looking for a mortgage broker and I see a sea of mortgage brokers all wearing black, well, how do I pick one? They're all the same. Like it's almost anyone will do. And when anyone will do, it's probably the last person to contact me or the first person I happen to come across, or even a friend of a friend. But if I'm looking in a sea and I go, oh, why is that person standing out? Why are they wearing white? And they're waving at me and they've got something different to say. Well, I'm going to use that person, right? So let's talk a little bit about what sort of things we can do here, Ash, because there's a lot of ways and ways we can take this title, wear white when everyone wears black. For example, literally, dressing differently, having a unique look is incredibly powerful in business. Same as branding, having a different brand is incredibly powerful, through to strategy, like strategy and actions. What most mortgage brokers are doing is getting them the results they're getting. And we know what the average mortgage broker results are, not very much. So strategically and actions wise, what's the industry talking about? What are brokers doing? Well, you probably got to do the opposite. So which places do you think would be most valuable for our listeners in this space?
It's a great point, actually. I speak about this a lot generally is work out what everyone else is doing and then do the opposite. It's a very hard thing to do because it's I guess it's nuanced. There are things that everyone does that you should be doing, like being compliant, being legal, fulfilling certain obligations. Those things, yes, you need to do what everyone else is doing if they're doing it well. But I think what we're really talking about is attracting attention, all right? I mean, ultimately, standing out is about attracting attention, right? Which I think a lot of people are fearful of. I mean, it's risk taking. Like, do you put yourself out there to be judged? You know, do you go and ask people for a date knowing that 19 times out of 20 you'll get rejected? Will you go back the 20th time? I think it's a really difficult thing for people to embrace, James, is to stand out, take a risk. take a risk of being judged, take a risk of being rejected, take a risk of being foolish or being perceived as foolish. All those things are risks for people. And I think we're generally, well, not I think, I know human beings are risk averse creatures. We've got this impulse, fight, flight, that responds to risk by, we either run away from it or we fight it. So it takes some practice. And it takes some understanding of human nature to put yourself out there and then be prepared potentially for negative reactions. I mean, what will
Mhm.
happen, James? What will happen if, I don't know, let's just say, for example, I don't know, I could use one of our old members who you know very well, who's a bagpipe player, all right? Who's very successful. His business is growing fabulously. And some years ago, he was into his bagpipes, but used to keep it hidden. Didn't want people to know because he thought he'd look like, I don't know, a bit of a nerd. Well, I think we spoke to him and he embraced that part of himself and put it out there in his kilt and his little hat and his Scottish gear playing the bagpipes. It got people's attention. As long as you're good at everything you need to be good at, you got to get people's attention. And that was something that nobody else to this day has been able to replicate. Right? One, because they're bloody hard to play. Bagpipes, it's like wrestling a live octopus, right? Impossible. Right. But the point of it is we've all got something about ourselves that is unique. It's our story, it's our appearance. It might be something that's different about it. It could be um, the way we look, the way we speak. It could be a disability. It could be something cultural. It could be something physical. Find something about yourself that you can put out there. I know that is asking people to take a risk. And I think you need people around you to help you through that. I encourage everybody to take that out of this. Go away and reflect on what is it about me that I can inject into the business, and not necessarily putting yourself as the key person. I think that's one thing I would define and be clear is we're not saying make all the business about you. Right? We're actually the opposite of that. Right? But find something about you and what your life that you can build positioning and attraction around. Everybody's got something. Everybody's got something, right? And you
Yeah,
generally know what it is that you tend to sit up in your seat and talk a bit faster and get a bit more energetic when you're talking about it. And so
yeah,
whatever gets you like that, that's probably what you should be, making your thing.
probably, yeah. I like that you mentioned that. Yeah, and one thing I was going to say as well is that we're talking about wearing white when everyone wears black, and it doesn't even have to be that extreme, right? Like you could just wear gray, dark gray. Like this is a spectrum. So if everyone's wearing black, you could wear red, or you could wear a Hawaiian shirt, right? Like there's levels of standing out, you know. And you can work up to it in your comfort zone. If everyone's wearing black, start by wearing a lighter shade of black, dark gray. Work your way through as your confidence builds to the point where you're happy to put on a Hawaiian shirt when everyone else is wearing black potentially. Um, but just yeah, being yourself is key. It's more fun. And if we go back to first principles and go, we have a mortgage business. We would like to hit some goals with that. We'd like to grow it. We'd like to earn more money, have a better life. And one of the key strategies to doing that in our mortgage business blueprint is we have to elevate our visibility. We need to be seen and known by more people, and we have to stand out in order to be seen and known. And that's probably a good point, Ash, in that, and for our listeners, is that we want to grow. So that means we need more people to talk to. How do we get more people to talk to? Stand out, have something different to say, be interesting. And when we go back and go, I do want to grow my business, so I guess I need to stand out. Like you can't attract people by just putting on a black t-shirt in a series of black t-shirts. So in the mortgage business, what that might mean is if you're pumping out the exact same messages and offers and social media content and email newsletter content, interest rate updates and everything that every other mortgage broker is doing, That's the same as wearing black when everyone else is wearing black. If your newsletter sounds like everybody else, and it's boring and it's got nothing different to say, then you're not standing out. Like that's probably one of the core messages I want you to talk to briefly, Ash, is that I think a lot of brokers think they're doing the right things, but they don't even realize they're wearing black. Maybe you can talk to that concept of not even realizing that you're just like everybody else.
Well, it's unconscious for most people. That's quite right, James. I was thinking while you were speaking about, comparison being the thief of joy. And I think that what I want people to think about is when you are like everybody else, i.e., wearing black in a sea of black, guess what? Everybody, that you want is comparing you to them. Subconsciously, unconsciously, you're getting compared to everybody that's just like you. When you wear white or whatever, when you stand out as uniquely you, guess what happens? Everybody starts comparing everybody else to you because there's only one of you. So you're actually flipping things upside down. Like instead of you being compared to everybody, everybody's getting compared to you. That's the power of standing out and taking the risk of being compared. But remember, there's only one of you, so no one will ever compare to you favorably because there's only one of you. That's the power of doing that. And I think for a lot of people, it's a leap of faith because you're right. I think deep down inside, we're driven by unconscious urges to fit in and to be one of the crowd and to not stand out. Because guess what used to happen, James? When you're the one that stands out from the crowd in days gone by, you got eaten up. You're the weak one that got picked off the pack and got eaten, so to speak. Right. So I think these things that happened in our evolution bred into us a need to be part of the pack to feel safe. Right. So separating yourself from the pack naturally triggers feelings of fear and risk and danger, which triggers a retraction internally to going back to what you know, which is fitting in. So standing out does actually go against, your natural urges. So take that on board, everybody, right? This is why it's hard because making yourself stand out deep down inside will make you feel like you're doing the wrong thing because it goes against your natural urges. So when you get those feelings, embrace them and go, you know what? That's what Ash and James said, so it must be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because it does run pretty deep. We're not expecting everybody to just put a white shirt on tomorrow and run out there and go, here I am, everybody. Bit by bit, embrace elements of who you are and your personality into your business and brand and start to have more fun. When you start to have more fun, you'll stand out a little bit more and a little bit more because you're more unique, you're more real, and people will resonate that. And one thing I'd like to add or even finish on, Ash, is just a thought I had that, and people might want to think about this or write this down. And something I've thought about a little bit in that I think when someone is actually being different, for example, wearing white when everyone's wearing black, and let's say, yes, they stand out. Let's say you got a room of 100 people wearing black, someone walks in white. Now, yeah, they stand out, right? But what I want everybody to remind themselves of is that I believe that the 99 people in that room wearing black are jealous of the person that's got the guts to be themselves
Oh, hell yeah.
and wear white. So when you're thinking about standing out or being a little bit different, taking different action, not doing what every other broker's doing, injecting a little bit of your personality, yeah, you'll stand out. But remember that they're probably looking at you going, oh, I wish I could do that. Not that person looks different and looks like a fool. They're secretly jealous that you are actually free enough to be yourself. So
Oh,
that's what I'd
love,
like to add.
oh, I love that so much. Like take that away and put it in the bank, everyone. That's where most um, hate and attack comes from, whether it's social media or life in general. It comes from a place of jealousy and envy that you had the guts to be yourself. Because it takes courage to be yourself. It takes courage to stand out. right? So, James, you're so right. So, if nothing else, standing out will build a lot of courage internally. And so I think, one of our old episodes, we spoke about business only growing at the same pace you grow. Well, guess what? Put yourself out there, have the courage to be you, take a risk, be the one that everyone else goes to and say, hey, yeah, who's that guy? Right? They're secretly jealous that you had the guts to stand out when that's something they've been fantasizing about doing probably for years, but have never done.
Mm, so true. Do you want to leave it there, Ash, or have you got any other thoughts?
Oh, that's it. I expect to see at least one of our listeners on social media soon with a big white fluffy shirt going, hey, it's me. I do expect to see that, at least one.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Well, listeners, hopefully you've liked this episode. And it runs deep across your business, and it is a serious strategy to help you grow the business, get more people to talk to. Like this whole month and series about elevating your visibility and how to do that is crucial to having more people to speak to, which is something you need to grow your business, right? So take this on board. These things work, and you'll have more fun with it at the same time. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and well, as always, I'm looking forward to seeing you, Ash, next week, and listeners, I'm looking forward to seeing you as well. Have a good one until then.
See you next week, James.